Hey guys, welcome to another review and breakdown strategy video. This is VaulSC. We're going to take a look at DaShat Company. Not too sure how to exactly pronounce it. DaShat seems to be what most people are saying. And man, I really like the sectorial, and that's why I'm going to look at them today. It's almost as if they've been designed just with me in mind in terms of what I want to get out of a really good army. So infiNity the game, for me, is about fulfilling these various different roles that you have to do to win the game. So you need something which can stand in your deployment zone right off the bat, very first order of the game, whip out an HMG and just crush that flash pulse spot or that sniper or whatever it may be out in the battlefield. Well, for that, you've got the Zuyong Link team with the Tactical Awareness HMG to absolutely crush that. Blitz skill 16 and 5 dice, absolutely excellent. If there's maybe some smoke in the way, for some reason, this sectorial allows you to add a Ruishi to that link team and go with assisted fire, and if you get within 24, it's ballistic skill 18, effectively, well, 15 plus 3 for range and ignoring cover, with shock and all of that good stuff. So anything that's going to really just try to play passively and just stand out there in the open is going to get bashed. Then there's the whole button pressing thing. You need to go around there with your specialists. You've got the choice of the absolutely cost-effective Hunzakut going out there with irregular orders, willpower 14 pressing buttons, or alternatively the Xin Chao, which is amazing at fighting out in the midfield. We're definitely going to be talking that in this video. Obviously, you want something to run out there and attack the enemy if they are hiding because you're packing a massive HMG and they just want to wait for their turn. Well, you can go over there with Saito Tukan or McMurrough, unbelievably. You can land on the side of the table with Bashi Bazook, so you've got plenty of options for that. Of course, those are troopers that require a lot of orders, and for that, you've got tons of orders in the sectorial. You've got the super cheap flash pulse spots, of which you can take 3. You've got access to the tractor mules for even more beautiful regular orders, so it's all there. In terms of AROs, you can still put an missile launcher in your link team, 5-man link team, and you've got plenty of smoke. You've got plenty of annoying little people to defend your deployment zones in the form of the Libertos and tons of other chain rifles as well. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about DaShat Company. It's amazing. Really love the sectorial. Let's have a talk about it. In fact, we're just going to dive straight into the profile breakdown. So we'll just go left to right and we'll cover every single profile and talk about what makes this sectorial a really good one. Actually, before I get too deeply into it, every sectorial maybe has a few little weaknesses, and perhaps we'll talk about them. So this is a sectorial where you've got the Ghulam hacker, you've got Valerya Gromoz. They're pretty cool, but there are no killer hackers to be seen anywhere. So in terms of the hacking game, in terms of knocking out their hackers easily, this is one sectorial that does lack that. So do bear that in mind. Your only TO camo trooper is Saito, and he's not a specialist in the sectorial, so forget about your hack towers and Swiss guards and Noctifer missile launchers and that sort of cool stuff. It's very hard to surprise your opponent with AROs, so that's one thing that kind of comes up. But generally, we're talking about a sectorial that has very few weaknesses. Okay, so we have access to the Ariadne doctors and engineers in this one, and the Hakaslam doctors and engineers, which is pretty cool. For the 112 emergency service, you're paying 12 points, which is an absolute bargain. I mean, a lot of the time you just pay 12 points for a cheerleader anyway, and yet you've got a doctor. So this is a willpower 13 specialist for 12 points. Absolutely beautiful choice. The only reason why you might not want to take him, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is because the sectorial also has the Ghulam Doctor Plus. So if you're willing to spend an extra 4 points, you're effectively doctoring people on a 17 instead of a 13. So doctoring, yeah, you probably want to do that. The doctor's probably going to spend most of its time trailing behind the Zuyong HMG or missile launcher in the sectorial, and yeah, it is kind of important to revive them, so that's why I would probably recommend taking the Ghulam Doctor Plus over the 112 emergency service. But if you're at the end of writing your list and you're at 302 points, you need to shave off a couple points somewhere, or 4 points or whatever it is, the difference, yeah, it'd be 4 points, you could always downgrade to the 112. So recently they brought out the bike version of the 112. This guy is a bit questionable. You pay an entire SWC point for a model that isn't really doing much gunfighting. Yes, you're driving around in a bike, but just with a light shotgun isn't really, a good selling point, I think, for me. Spending an SWC point on mine layers, hackers, and big guns is really where it's at. Yeah, sure, you can drive around the battlefield more quickly to get to corpses and revive them, but I don't know how often that will really be coming up. Maybe if McMurrough falls down out in the battlefield, he can go chase him. As far as smoke grenades go, well, this is a sectorial where you can also take the Cum Riders, the Cum motorized troops, and Saito and McMurrough are exceptionally good at putting smoke out in the midfield as well, so I'm not too sure if he's needed for that role. So at 20 points for a Willpower 13 Doctor on a bike for an extra SWC point, I'm not really sure I can wholeheartedly recommend him. Note that he cannot be in a fire team as well. Extra bit of text, not that I believe they could be in a fire team anyway. Bounty Hunters. So now we're starting to get into sectorial territory, design space, where Bounty Hunters can be part of any fire team, and that means that you can put them with the Zuyongs, which is where I would really recommend them. The fantastic thing about this is you've got the super cheap 12-point SMG Bounty Hunter, and the great thing is that Booty Level 2 allows you to, if you're running several of these guys, if you've got, say, 3 of them, plus the Zuyongs and the Link team, looking at Booty Level 2, we've got some options here which are very useful in that context. Panzerfaust, MSR, more smoke grenades, mimetism, adhesive launcher, multi-rifle, HMG, ODD. So with several bounty hunters running around, the chances of rolling up something like that, which can be used within the Link team with everybody else supporting that model when it needs to leverage that particular role, is a lot higher. But in general, now that bounty hunters have become regular, now that they have become linkable, you're going to start to see them a lot more regardless of even the booty ability. So that Arcalite Canon, I think it's an HMG range band kind of glue gun, as far as I can recall. Let's just quickly check it. Arcalite Canon, disposable 2, adhesive. So it's like an adhesive launcher that you need to reload, as it were. The Bounty Hunter profiles, most of them are pretty good. The SMG one is the one I'd recommend to keep points down so you can have a really massive list. The other ones that I look at sometimes are the Sniper Rifle, just a single 0.5 SWCs and an inner Link team. He's going to be able to control one particular vector or a stand up later in the game, maybe if you lose your missile launcher. The other guys, I'm not really too sure if they're needed. Even the Red Fury, which is beautiful, the Ruishi's going to be doing that job most of the time with a Spitfire that has assisted fire, and obviously the massive Link team, MSV2, all of that good stuff. Bashi Bazooks. This is the option for airborne deployment, but don't make the mistake that I've often done, which is to drop them into the middle of the battlefield. They do only have AD parachutists, which means you've got to pick which side of the table they're going to come on from. They can't drop in through the air. Holoprojector level 2 is not normally the best ability in the game, but it's very, very good for coming on the side of the battlefield. Because what's often going to be happening is you're going to be deploying there, and there'll be just one annoying flash pulse spot around the back that's going to shoot you and try and blind you. But in this case, it's only got a 1 in 3 chance of hitting the right Bashi Bazook before you then move over and start spraying it with whatever you've got. SMG's Chain Colt is my favorite profile here. Again, it's extremely cheap. You can be very risky with this guy without really worrying about committing a huge chunk of your army. And then once you do move to within 8 inches, they've got the horrible choice of face-to-facing you or dodging. If they dodge the Chain Colt, you shoot the SMG. If they shoot back at you, free hit with the Chain Colt. Bear in mind that breaking out of Holoprojector level 2 state, I think, does give you surprise shot, which is pretty cool. The only profile that I would never take is the the AP rifle, I think, and breaker pistols. It's pretty expensive on a BS11 profile, and you're giving up the opportunity to take the profiles that have got the cool toys, E-Mauler, Chain Colt, direct template stuff. It's better to put the easy-to-hit sort of guns onto a profile that has low ballistic skill. And with all the short-range stuff there, you're going to be getting close to them straight away with your airborne deployment ability. There's even the Specialist Operative profile, but again, coming on the side of the battlefield usually means you're still a fair way away from objectives where you've got to press buttons. So again, the 12-point SMG Chain Colt, my fave. Brawlers are very common in infiNity the game now. They're in a lot of sectorials. You can make a fire team core here. The only reason why I just wouldn't even bother making a Brawler link team in this sectorial, even though you've got access to the MSV2 multi-sniper, is that you're going to be making that Zuyong link team just about every time and packing it out with bandits here, not bandits, the bounty hunters and the Rushi and maybe the Miranda Ashcroft, Father-Lucien Sforza, which we'll talk about in a second. So Brawlers, I'm not really looking at it. Please, 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 whatever you do, do not go out there and take the Engineer or the Doctor. Look at them. The 12 whip, 20 points, and this is a sectorial that's got access to the Ghulam Doctor for 17 whip for reviving people and at 16 points, or the Doctor, a 12-point willpower 13 guy in the form of the 13-point willpower 13 guy in the form of the Dozer. So just don't take these two profiles ever. Pretty cool. You got a little assault hacking device there, so if you really did want assault hackers, this one is made a bit cheaper by virtue of the SMG. Still can't believe that Corvus Belli are doing that, just giving SMG profiles to models to make them better and cheaper at the same time. But yeah, Brawlers aren't really what this sectorial's all about. The Dozer can't be in a link team, doesn't do a lot of fighting, so I don't really like the glue gun profile. The two profiles I consider are either just the blank guy for reviving your Ruishi, because that's got structure points, or the tractor mule device if you're going to be chucking in some extra tractor mules. We'll be talking about these guys in a little while. It's going to come down to whether you want the extra baggage regular orders or not, whether you want the guns or not. But if you're not wanting any tractor mules, obviously take the one without the mule device, the control device, to save yourself a point. Father-Lucien Sforza, finally, we've got a sectorial where you can actually use him. I wouldn't recommend taking the Holo Projector version level 2 guy because he can't go on the link team, so Holo Projector level 1's all you'll really get with him. But the really, really cool thing is that he actually is a bit more reliable with his gun now, sporting a vial rifle and adhesive launcher, and they may not see him coming. They may not expect him in your link team. If you're moving out with just some pleb who is just a standalone model, they may be a bit more prepared for it if you're using Holo Projector level 1. But in a link team, you know, you could be pretending to be Miranda Ashcroft, for example, and she moves around to shoot something. They think that you've got ODD, so they dodge, perhaps, and then you spray them down with a viral rifle with +3 ballistical extra burst, or an adhesive launcher, and you glue them to the ground like that. So Sforza very, very powerful now, and I think that I'm not too sure if he gets surprise attack from coming out of Holo Projector level 1 state. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but I'm not 100% sure. The other really cool thing about him being in the sectorial, apart from the awesome stylisticness of it, is that McMurrough is going to be very popular now, and he's got total immunity, which is very strong, but he does have viral vulnerability, and this guy has the exact cure for that with a viral rifle. So you may show up at some point where McMurrough is trying to throw a smoke to defend against you. Sforza blasts him, needing 19s to hit with the ballisticals 13, plus range, plus link team, 4 dice, viral rifle, and that would just rip McMurrough a new one. So really like this guy, and we'll run him some of the time. Ghulams, so we all know about Ghulams. It's really cool that you can make a fire team core of them, but again, your Zuyongs are going to be the core, because even though you know it's the core rule, you're only going to use 1 or 2 of them, because you're going to be filling up the link team with the Rushi and the various different kinds of bounty hunter, right? There are 3 Ghulams in particular in this sectorial in terms of the profiles that interest me, though. Number 1, the Doctor. Okay, so 16 points, willpower 17 when you're doctoring somebody, really, really strong. The other one is the Lieutenant. There's not a lot of really good Lieutenant options, so you may as well just take a nice cheap 12-point guy with willpower 14 to try and win that initiative role more often than not. If you're worried about him being assassinated, you could always take a couple more of them as decoys. The other one that I like the look of is the Ghulam Hacker, 20 points for a willpower 14 hacker. The only question is whether you do go with this particular Ghulam or fork out just 1 additional point for the ability to put Valerya Gromoz with the same willpower into a link team, and you've got the option to fire that pitcher out there. Now, she's not very good at killing enemy hackers with that, because she's just a regular hacker, but she can become a bit more powerful and a bit more adept at that if your link team also has this tactical awareness Zuyong with deflect level 2. So then the deflect level 2 is helping Valerya, and the tactical awareness is helping you move the link team around. She can fire pitches, and if she's just taking on an enemy assault hacker or an enemy, regular hacker or hacking device plus, she might be able to crack them just with her willpower 14 brain blast, for example. So if you think you might be doing that, probably worth spending that one additional point on Valerya to go on the Zuyong link team over and above the Ghulam hacker. But with Ghulams in general, the 16-point sniper rifle's not bad if you've got the extra SWC half a point. In general, though, you're going to be using bounty hunters more often than not, and the Ghulams are going to be doing the specialized work. Libertos, we have the luxury of choosing between these 4 different profiles, although they are quite similar. Definitely grab the mine layers if you have SWCs to spare at the end of the list building process. Most of the time, though, you're going to be putting in that Zuyong HMG, or even 2 of them, possibly a Zuyong missile launcher, because very powerful on the link. You're almost always going to have that Rushi in there. So once you've done packing the list out with SWCs, if you've still got a spare 1 or 2, definitely grab these mine layers. If not, just the regular 9-point mimetism guy for attacking midfield can be very strong. They're not really going to want to walk past them and then ignore a DEP shot. Also, the chain colt's going to go off midfield very effectively, or if they leave some specialist just hanging around, you can go hunting him with the SMG. This guy's very easy to keep alive with the Hyperdynamics level 2, means he's dodging on 16s, very strong, and I can't believe he's got Dogged as well, and he's so cheap. So, Liberto's absolutely beautiful for the midfield, and I'd recommend running a couple of them more often than not, because this is going to be a robust list. You're going to have 9 or 10 regular orders in the first group, 4 or 5 or 6 regular orders in the second group, and then you may have the Libertos on top of that, right? Miranda Ashcroft, again, a model that you wouldn't see, that you wouldn't take until DaShat Company came along, and this is something I feel is really cool about the Sectorial, is it enables these niche characters that you don't really use very often. So with Miranda Ashcroft being in a link team, you can now actually take face-to-face rolls with your combi rifle. It's going to be Blissical 15, 4 dice kind of thing, and you can use that ODD to your advantage in there. She's also a specialist operative, so if you don't already have a specialist in your Zuyong crew, she can do that job. But again, one of my favorites is to sometimes run Miranda Ashcroft and sometimes run Lucien Sforza, pretending to be her using Holo Projector level 1, because they may dodge if they think they're up against ODD, when in fact they're about to get sprayed down by Lucien's viral rifle. Najrun Engineer, so you're paying 17 points for this, which is a bit pricey, whereas the Dozer, who you're probably going to be taking anyway because you may want Tractor Mules, can save you 3 to 4 points at just the cost of 1 willpower. The only things you're really going to be engineering is possibly the Tractor Mules with the guns, or the Rushi, and the Rushi's got remote presence, so you can re-roll the attempt at that if you fail with command tokens. So Najrun and Engineer, I really don't see the need for. Odalisks, I want to like them. I love the new models. These guys are a bit of a classic infiNity piece that hasn't seen a lot of change, or any significant meaningful change over time. So they've got a bunch of really interesting abilities, but unfortunately nothing which is powerful enough in today's meta. And notice that we've seen power creep over the last year or two in infiNity the game, and Odalisks, I think, have been left behind. You're paying points in the 20s for a model that can't really be a cheerleader, too expensive for that, isn't really got the kind of weaponry you needed for AROs. Yeah, okay, so it's got ICO level 3, which is very powerful in close combat, but you're still better off leaving that for Saito Togan or McMurrough or something which is going to move out there quickly and have a high CC stat and a really good close combat weapon. And when it comes to just going out and brute forcing it with attacking, if you're going to be spending your orders and spending your points on a model that's just BS12 and maybe an additional dice for the link, compare that to your Zuyong HMG or your Russian link team, Lucien Sforza, that kind of thing. There's just no comparison. So sadly, we're going to have to leave these guys at home. There is an option for going Haris, so you go Haris here, and Miranda Ashcroft just wildcards into that link team, or Lucien Sforza does that. Authorized bounty hunters can be a part of that as well. So you could take just this single Harris Odalisk just as a one-off. That's probably the only model I'd really consider, but it's still 25 points. Not really sure if you want that Harry's team in your list. But again, if you're committed to DaShat Company and you're wanting to go for, say, limited insertion, you might have the Zuyong Corps, Odalisk Harris with a couple of wildcards, and then some other big point stuff like Mag Guard or Hulon Shock Trooper. Maybe you'll find a spot for it. Valerya Gromoz we've already talked about, so similar stats as a Ghulam, but she costs 1 extra point, and for that extra point you have the ability to go on a link team that can also have Deflect level 2, and you've got an upgrade for Expel, which won't come up that much, but the Pitcher, I think, is worth that 1 additional point. You can move and shoot your Pitcher, Ballistical 14, say maybe -3, -6 for long range, but you've got 2 attempts at it, so that Pitcher is more than likely to go down, and you can just put it in some sort of corner where they can't shoot it immediately, and they're trying to move out with something that's hackable, and Valerya can make use of that, or even just killing their enemy hacker in a link team. Just some random Fusilier hacker defensively will go down, biting the dust against Valerya if it's her active turn, and if she has the benefit of that firewall. War Cores are War Cores, nothing to say there. Let's move on to the Alpha Seed. So the sad story of the Alpha Seed is that he's got some amazing miniatures here, but the HMG profile is 53 points for a guy that isn't really any better at shooting than just a Mobile Brigada who's cheaper, or like a Zuyong HMG. The thing about a Zuyong HMG is that you've got tactical awareness and you can go on a link, whereas this guy, damn, just the HMG. When you look at all his peripheral stuff, Mine Layer, Sixth Sense, Veteran Level 1, Smoke Grenades, Grenade Launchers, Anti-Personnel Mines, all of that really cool stuff. It's very good, but very situational at the same time, and not worth the extra points you're having to invest in him. And even worse, if you do invest in him, he's the man you've chosen for the job, when there's another man who's also applicable for the job, that's your Zuyong HMG and a link team, who's going to do the job so much better because he's got a full link team backing him up. I would actually like this profile HMG if he could wildcard into a Harris team. For example, if you could make a special Harris with 2 Brawlers or 2 Bounty Hunters and 1 Alpha Seed, then I'd consider him, because he's a 5-dice HMG at BS13, but more importantly, he can fire the Light Smoke Grenade Launcher even more reliably, or in 2 different places, which is actually quite efficient, so I might even consider him under that situation. The Heavy Rocket Launcher is a little bit more relevant. I think if you're going to run one of these guys, run the Heavy Rocket Launcher. But again, he is just 1 Burst 1 ARO with Armor 5 and 45 points. Maybe you'd take this guy in a mission where you know there's a saturation zone and your Zuyong Missile Launcher is still only going to be Burst 1, even a link team. But again, so many points, and the thing about the Sectorial is that you can easily create a very robust, massive list with, 16, 17 orders even, where if you take the Alpha Seed, that's going to be cut down to maybe 13, 14 orders, if you wanted to take all the other stuff that you normally won't want to take. He's not a bad profile, though. If you're going to include these guys in your DaShat Company, I think usually it's going to be because you like the models, and I can't hold that against you. But there's some really awesome stuff in the Sectorial that I think is a little bit better. So the Hulon Shock Trooper, I think, is a profile that's really interesting, and I think this guy's even more relevant in this Sectorial compared to Invincible Army. And that's because he's so well backed up by all of the other profiles you can take, and by the mass number of orders you can take as well. By far the more interesting profile of the 2 is the SMGs, because this guy's going to be doing more shooting than anything else, and it's more important to have an additional dice than it is to have +3 between 16 8 and 16, if we're talking about the combi rifle comparison. You lose the light flamethrower, but again, you're going to be shooting with the guns more often than flaming people, more often than not. You do save 3 points with this profile as well, and of course, the shock's really, really important, because you're going deep into their territory. You're going to come across models that have Dogged and NWI and that don't have shock immunity, so he's going to be able to do that. Meanwhile, he's got Specialist Operative, very relevant. NWI and shock immunity, almost like having 2 wounds. Mimetism makes him a lot better at gunfighting than, say, a Cracker Renegade, which this sectorial doesn't have access to, mind you. Forward deployment level 2 makes him way better than the Shikami, which is a very close comparison to this guy. So I'd much rather have Mimetism and FD2 rather than ODD any day of the week. And he absolutely crushes in close combat. Note that he's got a monofilament close combat weapon with MA3. So what you can do with this guy is deploy him 20 inches out, start making a beeline towards their tag or really important target. He is very good at fending for himself with his, his twin SMGs, with his dodging ability, with his mimetism, and then he can get over there, go into close combat. Even if they're AOing him point blank, all he needs to do is assassinate that target. And with MA3 CC22 monofilament weapon, there's a really good chance of him just striking in the heart and killing it. So very, very powerful. Again, very expensive though, so I think if I'm going to be choosing a guy like this in an ITS context, I'd have one list which is built around the Hulon, and another list which doesn't include him. So the Xin Chaos, the profile that we like the most is the middle one, the SMG, because as always, SMG. You really want the Forward Observer rather than the Assault Hacker, because out in the midfield he's just going to be too vulnerable to killer hackers in my opinion. But the Forward Observer Zensha is a great all-rounder. Climbing Plus is very relevant when you're out in the midfield with infiltration. Great at shooting close range with his surprise attack and camo and all of that. Can be a very potent ARO when they're not expecting it with the DEP. And of course he can cover his tracks with anti-personnel mines, keeping him alive a bit better. Climbing on top of a roof, going prone, that kind of thing. Yep, the boarding shotgun is pretty good, but you pay an extra 3 points for it, and you miss out on, the shock rounds, what do you call it, the mines as well. The boarding shotgun guy, though, with decharges, could be a little bit relevant in missions like the grid or looting and sabotaging, but just bear in mind that if he's placing decharges, he goes down to CC 12, so not very reliable, and you may run out of decharges ammunition if you're not careful. Now, the 34-point guy, you will see him in DaShat Company lists quite a bit, but please bear in mind that when we compare him to the Hunzakut, you are getting a Willpower 14 specialist in Marcus State for just over half the cost. So what would you rather, 2 Hunzakut Forward Observers or 1 Xin Chao? And it's really going to be a question of how much fighting you're going to be doing. If you're going to be attacking with him, if you're going to be trying to control the midfield, the Xin Chao is going to be better. If you're pressing a lot of buttons, a couple of Hunzakuts are better because they are higher whip and they place mines just the same as the Xin Chao is going to be able to. And they're so much cheaper. So I think for a mission like Comm Center, Tic-Tac-Toe, that kind of thing, if you're going to be pressing a lot of buttons, Hunzakuts are the way to go. Whereas if it's more about controlling one particular space through the middle, maybe acquisition style missions or armory, that's when the Xin Chao is probably a bit more useful. Or if it's a table where there's a lot of verticality and your climbing plus is going to make a lot of difference. So finally the Zuyongs. So when we see Zuyong Fireteam Core, this is not going to be a matter of taking 5 Zuyongs. It's nothing like, the Wooming Pain Train. It's nothing like the Invincible Army rollout. Note that Invincible Army does the big Zuyong link better because it's got access to Tai Sheng with NCO. It's got access to the Dao Ying Lieutenant Level 2. So when it comes to Pain Train, limited insertion lists rocking over there, Invincible Army do that better. For some reason, I hear people saying that, in this sectorial you can't take the Tactical Awareness H&G, but I suspect that's just a result of maybe when Army 6 first got updated, they didn't have that profile. But every time I load it up on this or on my phone, I'm seeing the Tactical Awareness guy there. So what this link team's all about is the defensive link team version, where you take a single Zuyong, maybe with the HMG, and that's what makes it count as a Zuyong Invincibles fire team. Then we will go back and read the text for authorized bounty hunters. Bounty hunters can be part of any fire team in the sectorial army, so that's a Zuyong link team. And then we'll go over and read the text for Rushis, can join a Zuyong Invincibles fire team. So then we start filling it out. So you put in the Zuyong, put in the Rushi, and then you either put in 3 bounty hunters like this, 3 SMGs, possibly even one of them with a sniper rifle, or bearing in mind that if you've got 3 of them there, the chances of rolling up a sniper rifle or an HMG or something useful on one of them is very high. So they're not just going to be sitting around with SMGs all day, they're going to have other gear. The other way, the other version to do it is to put in a secondary Zuyong. My favorite secondary is the missile launcher, because then you've got a very powerful defensive link team, in the sense that your missile launcher be a 16 2 dice from the back line with a Ghulam doctor there ready to revive him, and then in the active turn you're hitting them with HMG and the Rushi, right? Or if you don't want the missile launcher, maybe the other tactical awareness guy for extra movement around the battlefield, and the Tin Bot Deflector level 2, then you could sub out one of your bounty hunters and put Valerya Gromoz in there. Let me just move these out of the way. And then we've still got a very powerful link team. So you've got the Deflector, HMG, the Rushi for the offensiveness, Valerya for the hacking, Bounty Hunter there, keeping the points cost down. Just a really good, versatile link team with so many good options. So there's no right or wrong answer here in terms of these options. Other way you can play it, of course, is to put Lucien Sforza in there, or Miranda Ashcroft. We can have hours of fun playing so many DaShat Company variations, but it's always going to start with that one Zuyong Tactical Awareness HMG. That's a must. Then you ask the question, do you want 1 or 2 more Zuyongs? You probably don't want to take more than 3. And then you start filling out with your specialist wildcards in terms of whether it's Valerya, Miranda, or Lucien Sforza, and then bounty hunters for whatever slots you have left. Other than that, though, I mean, of course you can throw in the Forward Observer, of course you can throw in multi-rifles, all this other fun stuff, boarding shotguns, but you don't really need to spend the extra points on that stuff when you've got the other options to fill in and do that job with bounty hunters having those guns anyway. So just a really amazing versatility in terms of link teams. The Maghariba Guard, I think, is a little bit less relevant these days now that we've just been shocked by Fatality Level 2 being in link teams. If you stand out there with your Maghariba Guard expecting Armor 8 to save you, yeah, you've got another thing coming. It's just so easy to shoot one of these things nowadays. They have the really interesting new Mine Dispenser profile, and Mine Dispenser is going to be very, very powerful on a tag. The only problem with that is you pay an extra 20 points for it. So if you are going to be taking a Mag Guard, my recommended profile, as always, is the 2 heavy pistols. Just because if you ever decide to make a big run to the side of the table with it, you come around the corner, you've got that opportunity to fire the heavy pistols at point blank with the +3 to hit, rather than relying on some, pistols or flamer which they may dodge. So really prefer the heavy pistols profile. I could see this guy being useful in a limited insertion DaShat context, and if you're careful with him, you're attacking him at the right time, if you're AORing from the right spot, you can keep him alive. And of course you do have a reliable engineer in this list, so it's not a bad idea, this Mag Guard, in some context, but I don't think you'll be taking him very often. So we've got a lot of things in this list which eat up orders: McMurrough, Saito, Hulon. For that, we're going to take our 3 Fanhouse remotes. It's just absurd that the AVA's gone up to 3 for these guys when some factions desperately need it. I'd love to see AVA 3 flashball spots in vanilla Yuching, for example, but no, it's just the new sectorials that have access to this, excuse me. So in a lot of lists, you'll just throw them in there and forget. One downside, though, is that there are some total immunity units in this game now which ignore flash pulses, so that can be annoying if you're over-relying on flash pulses for your AROs. Thing is, though, you're going to have a Zuyong missile launcher a lot of the time, which is going to really get the job done. Camille's, as always, minesweepers, but just be cautious about taking too many Silhouette 4 models if you already can take the tractor mules and maybe bikes and things like that, Rushi. Rafik remotes, there is an FTO model now which you can actually duo up with a Mag Guard. I don't think that's a particularly useful duo. The Red Fury is very interesting. It can have assisted fire as well for hitting on 14s, but for that job you're still going to be using the Rushi, aren't you? Because you're still going to have the Link Team bonus, MSV2, you're going to have shock, you're going to have the range bands. So I wouldn't see this guy on the table that much, I feel. Missile Bot, not even an FTO option. Shihab remotes, your plain old HMG, you might take this occasionally, but with so many other good options for offense and defense, I'm not really sure why. Tractor mules, now just be careful that if you're gonna take too many of these guys, you've also got a lot of other remotes on the battlefield, and your deployment zone might start piling up with some very big footprint troopers, which you might not be able to find hiding spots for. So just be careful about that. You may run into some tables where you don't have enough space to keep them all, and you're making yourself more vulnerable to template weapons like rocket launchers and missiles and chain rifles. But if you've got SWC spare, the MRLs are pretty cool. They can be used for spec fire, which can be quite fun. The thing is, though, if you've already spent the 1.5 on the Rushi, 1.5 on the Zuyong, you spent a 0.5 on your hacker, you may have SWC spare for sure, but they'd probably be wanting to go into the Libertos. I think that having the mine layer out in the midfield is a little bit more important than having the total reaction MRL or the Kayusha MRL at the back. Lu Duan, I think, is not a very good profile when you have the Rushi. It can be used as a holo projectile level 1 option, but again, taking yet another silhouette for footprint at the back of your line when you're going to be wanting tractor mules and all these flashpole spots, your Rushi, maybe a bike. I don't think there's going to be enough space for him. And even with Assisted Fire Mark 12, this guy can't go in the link team. I think it would have been interesting if they'd made this guy linkable as well, but they'd made a special rule that you can only have either the Lu Duan or the Rushi. So you might have some games where he's pretending to be a Rushi, but at the end of the day, you don't want to give up MSV2 and the Spitfire, in my view, because that extra burst is important, and the extra ability to see through smoke is very, very important. Rushi, can't believe that they made this guy linkable. This was one of the most cost-effective models in the game, even without being a link team. And with the ability to go into a link team, you can defend for a while, you can mess them up with Libertos, you can attack with McMurrough, and then in the late game, you spend command tokens, shunt some orders into Group 1, make sure you've got a full 10-order group ready to go, and with Group 2, maybe put Assisted Fire onto the Rushi, and then you charge out and you just wipe them. So this model's just going to get so many kills. One subtle point is that if you do put Valerya in the same link team as the Rushi, she's going to be in the same group, which means that you're spending an order out of that group for Assisted Fire and then doing the rollout. So having that having that Ghulam in Group 2 to put Assisted Fire up is going to mean you've got that 10 order block for the Rushi's group to move out and do the absolute brutal bashing that will probably happen mid to late game. Hunzakuts we talked about briefly comparing to the Xin Chao. I still will take these guys more often than the Xin Chaos just because I want a role for killing things and I want a role for button pressing. Killing things is going to be up to McMurrough, it's going to be up to Bashi Bazooks, up to Saito Togan, up to the Link Team, up to the Hulon. Button pressing, that's Hunzakut, and I want a nice willpower 14 guy to do that. Doesn't really matter that he's irregular, because he's always going to be doing stuff anyway. He's going to be laying mines, he's going to be pressing buttons, he's going to be doing that stuff out in the midfield. Really great model for supplies. You move up, throw the smoke grenade on the supply crate, you grab it, you move away. Really, really powerful at doing that. The sniper rifle takes up an SWC. It allows you to get out into... I mean, you can deploy on top of big towers and things, but with just Bliss Skill 11, he's not super reliable. The profile that does interest me, though, comparatively, is the light grenade launcher. I love the idea of taking a 10-order combat group with all of your powerful stuff in it for doing things, and then the second group, you've got a lot of defensive stuff, Libertos, other bits and pieces that are just hanging back and not really doing much in the active turn. And then you've just got this one Hunzakut with a light grenade launcher to move out and spend 6 or 7 orders just on that Hunzakut, just lobbing grenades for half a turn, and then you spend your full order group doing everything else. That could be something that could be very punishing turn after turn as you're eliminating a lieutenant or an important hacker or annoying a link team that may be clumped up a little bit too much, hitting remotes which are very bad at dodging, motorbikes. That profile is very, very powerful if you have a very big secondary group, and this is the kind of sectorial that can actually do that very, very effectively. Saito Togan, I made the mistake of thinking this guy had the specialist operative profile, and for that reason you may not see him as much. He's definitely not an auto include like he is in Drew's. But I do like the ability to have smoke out in the midfield, and I do like the ability to really control the midfield and assassinate some key targets with him. He can be a very good gunfighter with Tio Camo, Surprise Attack, and Combi Rifle, but he really shines in close combat, and there's very little in the game that can stop him from moving out as a marker, getting to the spot he needs to be in, throwing the smoke grenade, then going into close combat. Just remember to put the smoke right next to their model without touching the smoke template with touching the model with the smoke template. Then move in with Saito. He does have an explosive close combat weapon, so brilliant for missions like looting and sabotaging, that kind of thing, where he can smoke the objective, move up, start whacking it with martial arts level 4 and the explosive close combat weapon. The Cum Riders, the Cum motorized troops. So these guys, very useful for coming up the back and throwing smoke, but McMurrough's going to be doing a lot of that anyway. If you're worried that you may lose McMurrough or that he may have better things to do, having one of these spikes at the back to assist the Rushi with the smoke templates could be kind of handy. I especially like the light shotgun profile if you're going to be offensive with him, driving over the other side of the battlefield and getting some hits. If he's just got a chain rifle and a pistol, it's not really, I mean, they're going to be dodging a lot of the time, whereas the light shotgun, +6 to hit up close, the template's going to be effective if you drive over there. He's got Dogged to help him get across the other side of the battlefield, and other than that, he's just going to be smoking. And the EM close combat weapon as well. So throw the smoke grenade throw the smoke grenade down on the field next to the enemy model, drive in, close combat weapon, CC20, you may get the damage done. I don't particularly like the rifle profile because at 19 points, you're spending points on a guy gunning things down with BS11, and he's not going to be able to take the face-to-face rolls very well because he can't gain cover, so he can't impose that -3 from cover onto the enemy, so don't prefer this profile as much. Last but definitely not least, and probably last but most is the best way to say it, McMurrough. This guy should be in the majority of your DaShat lists because he was already very powerful and he's only just been buffed. So he's no longer extreme impetuous, he's regular impetuous. You don't have to run him out in front of a bunch of arrows if you don't want to. He's got the smoke to go down in front of the Rushi very effectively. He's got that super jump and the super speed to jump into there and just bash them. He's got Berserk now for some stupid reason, so MA23, +3 for MA3, so on 26, +6 for Berserk, 32. He's going to be critting on an 8+, and then the crit's going to cause an additional armor save from the double action weapon at AP as well, physical for 16, very few things that can survive that. So he's brilliant at assassinating lieutenants, he's brilliant at assassinating tags, he can kill just about anything. His only vulnerability is viral, and you don't see a lot of viral these days, so very, very powerful. And even if you can't get to them for some reason, standing behind a wall and throwing the grenade with physical 16 with spec fire is just brutal. You can even come around a corner, and if they decide to dodge, maybe throw the smoke grenade, throw the normal grenade. If they shoot him, just blap a couple of chain rifles in their direction. Just so, so powerful. Can't believe that he's been buffed, and I can't believe that he's in yet another sectorial that doesn't really need him. So DaShat Company, super, super strong. Can't wait to play some more games with them. I've been building a lot of lists which again have the HMG and missile launcher Zuyong, have got a couple of bounty hunters. The Ghulam stays in the second group. Then you've got either Miranda or Lucien Sforza. Couple of Libertos, all the fan house remotes. McMurrough's in there as well. I usually take one Hunzakut Fort Observer and one grenade launcher. I just spread everything else out over a couple of groups. You've got probably 16, 17 models there, and there's very little the sectorial can't get done. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's been a blast. Really enjoyed reviewing the DaShat Company, and hopefully we'll see some bat reps for them in the near future.